The rain fell like a grey curtain over the streets of Chicago, turning the sidewalks of the Pilsen neighborhood into makeshift streams. Andrea, a 34-year-old woman, clutched her 2-year-old daughter, Chloe, tightly against her chest, trying to shield her with an old jacket that barely kept out the water. Chloe's pale, feverish face was tucked against her mother's shoulder, each weak cough piercing Andrea's heart like a knife. There was no money for a cab, let alone a proper umbrella. The remnants of Andrea's former life had been reduced to a cramped apartment with peeling paint and a nearly empty fridge. 6 months earlier, her world had crumbled like a sandcastle. She discovered that her husband, Mike, had betrayed her with a co-worker from his office. The betrayal wasn't just emotional. Mike had drained their joint account, sold their family car, and vanished without a trace, leaving Andrea and Chloe with nothing but debts and unpaid rent. Andrea, once a marketing analyst, couldn't return to work because Chloe's frequent respiratory issues demanded constant care. That day, with Chloe's fever spiking dangerously, Andrea decided to walk to the public hospital nearly 2 miles away. The rain grew heavier, mixing with the tears she tried to hide. At a crowded bus stop with no room under the shelter, Andrea shivered, holding Chloe tightly. A sleek black car slowed beside the curb. Andrea didn't look up, assuming it was just another passerby. But a male voice, steady and kind, cut through the rain's patter. "Excuse me, are you okay? Do you need help?" Andrea turned, startled. A tall man, about 40, with neatly combed dark hair and a crisp suit, held a large black umbrella. He stepped out of the car, approaching cautiously. "No, thank you, we're fine," Andrea replied, her voice shaky but pride taking over. Chloe coughed again, a harsh sound that made the man frown with concern. "Your daughter doesn't look well. Let me take you somewhere dry. A hospital, maybe." Andrea hesitated, but Chloe's burning forehead broke her resistance. "Okay, just to the hospital," she murmured reluctantly. Inside the warm, quiet car, Andrea watched the man through the rearview mirror. He drove calmly, glancing at Chloe with gentle concern as she rested in her mother's lap. "I'm Thomas," he introduced himself with a small smile. "I'm Andrea, and this is Chloe," she replied, still wary. "Thank you for this." Thomas nodded, focusing on the road. At the hospital, the diagnosis came quickly: early-stage pneumonia. The doctor, Dr. Robert, prescribed antibiotics and rest. Andrea's panic surged as she thought of the medication costs. When she tried to pay for the visit with her few crumpled dollars, she learned Thomas had already covered it. "You didn't have to," she said, her tone a mix of gratitude and embarrassment. "It's not charity, Andrea. It's just the right thing to do," Thomas replied firmly, silencing her protests. He insisted on driving them to the pharmacy, and then to their apartment. On the way, Chloe, still weak, looked at Thomas curiously. "Are you strong like Santa?" she asked, drawing a surprised laugh from him. "Maybe not that strong, but I try," he said, winking at her. At their building, an old brick structure with faded paint, Thomas helped carry Chloe up the stairs. The apartment was small but tidy, with handmade curtains and toys neatly stacked in colorful bins. "You lived here long?" Thomas asked, trying to sound casual. 4 months, Andrea answered, tucking Chloe into bed. "We used to live in Logan Square, but things changed." She didn't elaborate, and Thomas didn't push. Before leaving, he handed her a business card. "If you need anything for Chloe or you, call me. Anything." Andrea took the card, feeling the weight of the gesture. As the door closed, she looked at Chloe, sleeping with a raspy breath, and felt a spark of hope she hadn't known in months. Outside, the rain continued, but for the first time, Andrea didn't feel so alone. The dim fluorescent light flickered in the ceiling of Andrea's small Pilsen apartment, casting restless shadows on the walls with water stains. It was just after 5 a.m. Tass and Andrea was awake, sitting at a chipped Formica table with a weak cup of coffee, made from the last grounds in the tin. Her old laptop, once used for managing marketing campaigns, hummed as she checked emails, hoping for responses to the dozens of resumes she'd sent over the past months. The screen showed only loan ads and a reminder of overdue rent. In the bedroom, Chloe slept, her face peaceful despite her slightly labored breathing. The fever from the previous night had eased with antibiotics, but every cough felt like a crack in the floor beneath Andrea's feet. She glanced at Thomas's business card on the table. Thomas Carter, CEO, Tech Trend Solutions, with a phone number and an address in the loop, a world away from her reality. Andrea hesitated, turning the card in her fingers. Accepting help from a stranger, even one who seemed genuine, felt like exposing a wound, something she'd avoided since Mike's betrayal. 6 months ago, her life was different. She and Mike lived in a cozy Logan Square apartment with a balcony full of potted herbs and a routine that, while not perfect, felt stable. He was an accountant at a corporate firm, and Andrea balanced her marketing career with caring for Chloe, who'd been fragile since birth with respiratory issues. When she found the texts on Mike's phone, the shock hit as hard as the pain. He didn't deny it. "I can't do this anymore, Andrea. You're always focused on Chloe, work, the house. I need more," he'd said with a coldness she never expected. Within days, Mike was gone, taking everything they could sell, the car, the TV, even Andrea's engagement ring. Left behind were an empty account, credit card debts, and a void that swallowed her hope. Now, in the morning's quiet, Andrea heard a rustle from the bedroom. Chloe woke, dragging her worn teddy bear, a first birthday gift Mike had helped pick out. "Morning, Mummy," she said, rubbing sleepy eyes. "Got juice today?" Andrea forced a smile, the question stinging. "Not today, sweetie, but I'll get some soon, okay? Let's have toast with butter." She sliced the last piece of bread, giving Chloe the bigger half. As Chloe ate, Andrea noticed her daughter's 2 small sneakers, and her chest tightened. The list of needs grew: medicine, clothes, food, the community daycare fee she hadn't paid. After breakfast, Andrea took Chloe to the daycare, a modest space run by a neighborhood group. On the way, they sang a song about fireflies that Chloe loved, Andrea's effort to keep her smiling. At the daycare, the coordinator, Ms. Linda, pulled her aside. "Andrea, I know it's tough, but Chloe had another coughing fit yesterday. It's not serious, but we need the supply fee updated. Without it, we can't keep her enrolled." Andrea swallowed hard, promising to sort it out next week, knowing she had no plan. Back at the apartment, she spent the morning at a nearby cafe with free Wi-Fi, sending resumes from her dying laptop. Each email was a fragile hope, but responses when they came were rejections. "Thank you for applying, but we've chosen another candidate." At noon, a notification brought another rejection, this time from an agency where she'd interviewed. Andrea stared at the screen, eyes welling, then packed up and left to pick up Chloe early. The sky was grey, and rain started falling as they reached the daycare. Chloe ran to her, holding a drawing of a house with a bright sun. "Look, Mommy, it's our house with a yard." Andrea smiled, but her throat tightened at the figure of a man beside them in the drawing. "It's beautiful, sweetie," she said, folding the paper carefully. At the bus stop, the rain intensified, and Andrea, without an umbrella, covered Chloe with her jacket. They missed the bus by seconds, and the next was 30 minutes away. Chloe coughed, a sound that rang like an alarm. Andrea scooped her up, feeling the fever's heat, and despair took over. Tears mixed with rain as she shielded her daughter. Then the black car reappeared. Thomas stepped out, umbrella in hand, his face shifting to concern at their state. "Andrea, you're soaked. Let me take you to the hospital." She wanted to refuse, but Chloe's cough was louder. In the car, Thomas turned on the heater, and Chloe, in Andrea's lap, asked weakly, "Is your car magic?" Thomas chuckled. "Not magic, but it's warm, right?" At the hospital, Dr. Robert confirmed the pneumonia hadn't worsened, but stressed the need for a less damp home. Thomas, unnoticed by Andrea, paid for the visit and new meds. At the pharmacy, when she tried to object, he cut her off gently but firmly. "Andrea, Chloe needs this now. We'll figure out the rest later." On the way back, Thomas asked about their life, and Andrea, exhausted, let slip pieces of the truth. Mike's betrayal, the debts, the inability to work with Chloe so sick. Thomas listened without judgment. At the apartment, he helped carry the medicine bags and stayed until Chloe fell asleep, medicated. Before leaving, he made an offer. "My company needs someone to organize our digital files. It's remote work at night when Chloe's asleep. It's not marketing, but it's a start. What do you think?" Andrea hesitated, pride clashing with need. "Why are you doing this? You don't know me." Thomas smiled, sincerity in his eyes. "Because I know what it's like to feel lost, and because Chloe deserves to grow up healthy." After a long pause, Andrea nodded. Okay, but I'll pay you back every cent. Thomas waved it off, leaving her with the card and a promise to send job details. As the door closed, Andrea looked at Chloe sleeping calmly and felt a glimmer of relief. Outside the rain fell, but inside the tiny apartment, a seed of change began to sprout. Sunlight filtered through the thin curtains of Andrea's apartment, casting a pale glow over the table where she worked on her laptop. It was the 3rd week since she'd taken the temporary job Thomas offered, and the pre-dawn silence, broken only by Chloe's soft breathing next door, had become her haven. Sorting digital files for TechTrend Solutions wasn't the career she'd envisioned. Before Chloe, Andrea managed campaigns for major brands, her days filled with meetings in sleek Loop offices. Now, her world was a one-bedroom in Pilsen, with damp walls and a schedule dictated by a toddler's fragile health. Still, the remote work brought unexpected relief. For the first time in months, Andrea paid rent on time and bought Chloe's meds without scraping coins. The modest salary covered essentials: milk, fruit, even a pack of cookies that lit up Chloe's eyes. That morning, while cataloguing TechTrend's financial reports, Andrea got an email from Thomas. "Great job on the files, Andrea. The team's impressed with your work. Can we talk tonight? I have a proposal." The professional yet kind tone sparked curiosity and caution. Thomas had been respectful since their rainy encounter, keeping contact work-focused, but each interaction hinted at something deeper. Care she wasn't sure how to read. At 7 p.m., after tucking Chloe in, Andrea joined Thomas on Zoom. His face appeared, lit by the soft glow of his modern living room, a stark contrast to her cluttered space. "Evening, Andrea. How's Chloe?" he asked, his smile genuine. "Better, thanks to the meds. She still coughs a bit, but the doctor says she's improving," she replied, smoothing her messy bun. Thomas nodded, moving to the point. "I want to talk about a new TechTrend project, an app to connect single moms to community resources, daycares, job training, medical aid. We need someone with planning and organizing skills to manage content. I know you did marketing, so I thought it could be a good fit. What do you think?" Andrea blinked, surprised. It was the first time in months anyone acknowledged her professional skills, not just her struggles as a single mom. "It sounds amazing, but why me? You've got a whole team of qualified people." Thomas paused, choosing his words. "Because you get what these moms go through. It's not just about skills, Andrea, it's about perspective, and you've already shown you're more than capable." The offer was tempting, but heavy. It meant more hours, maybe some in-person meetings, and Andrea wasn't sure how to balance it with Chloe. "Can I think it over? I need to figure out Chloe's routine," she said, hiding her insecurity. "Of course, no pressure. Let me know when you're ready," Thomas replied, his patience disarming. Over the next days, Andrea threw herself into the file work, her analytical mind reawakening. At the daycare, while picking up Chloe, she talked to Ms. Linda, who suggested a neighbor, Ms. Betty, to watch Chloe at night for a small fee. It was a risk, but Ms. Betty, a warm 65-year-old from downstairs, seemed trustworthy, her kindness reminiscent of Andrea's late grandmother. That night, with Ms. Betty watching Chloe, Andrea attended her first in-person meeting at TechTrend. The Loop office, with glass walls and ergonomic chairs, buzzed with innovation. Thomas greeted her with coffee and introduced her to the team, young coders and analysts who treated her with respectful curiosity. The meeting focused on the app called Moms Connected, and Andrea suggested features from her own experience: links to free clinics, simple guides for social services, a forum for emotional support. Her ideas were well received, and Thomas, clearly impressed, asked her to lead content development. Driving home, Andrea felt a mix of excitement and fear. For the first time, she saw a path beyond survival, but her past still loomed. Mike's mother, Mrs. Diane, showed up unannounced the next day, bringing groceries and her usual critical gaze. "Andrea, this isn't a life for Chloe," she said, gesturing at the ceiling's water stains. "You know I can take her. I've got space, stability. Why cling to pride?" Andrea took a deep breath, staying calm. "Because she's my daughter, Diane. We're managing." Mrs. Diane huffed, leaving the groceries. "Managing? Chloe needs more than this." The conversation ended in tense silence, with Mrs. Diane promising to check on her granddaughter. Andrea kept working on Moms Connected remotely, adjusting her days for Chloe and diving into files at night. Thomas sent occasional messages, always professional but with a warmth that made her smile. "Don't forget to rest. You're doing great." Chloe, meanwhile, seemed happier, asking about Uncle Thomas and drawing him in her scribbles. One night, as Andrea reviewed spreadsheets, Chloe woke with a harsh cough. Panic returned, but Miss Betty, who was there, helped calm her while Andrea called Dr. Robert. "It's a mild relapse, but we need to monitor," he said over the phone. "The damp apartment isn't helping. Try to keep her in a dry space." Andrea looked at the moldy walls, feeling her inadequacy scream. On impulse, she called Thomas. "Sorry to bother you so late, but Chloe's fever is back, and I don't know what to do." He replied instantly, "I'm coming over, don't go out in the rain." 30 minutes later, Thomas arrived with a portable humidifier he'd bought. He helped set it up in Chloe's room, and the girl, half asleep, smiled at him. "Uncle Thomas, is that a magic breeze?" she asked, pointing at the humidifier. He laughed. "Pretty close, kiddo." Once Chloe slept, Andrea and Thomas sat in the small living room, sharing tea from packets Mrs. Diane had left. "Why do you do so much for us?" Andrea asked quietly. Thomas looked at his cup, thoughtful. "When I was a kid, my mom was a single parent. A neighbor helped us when she was at her lowest. I never forgot that. I want to be that neighbor for someone." Andrea felt a lump in her throat, but it wasn't sadness. It was something warmer, alive. "Thank you, Thomas. I don't know how to repay you." He smiled. "Keep being the amazing mom you are. That's more than enough." When he left, Andrea opened her laptop and worked on Moms Connected. For the first time in months, she felt she wasn't just surviving, she was building something. Outside, the city slept, but in the small apartment, a new story was taking shape. The morning was grey, with heavy clouds looming over Pilsen, mirroring the weight in Andrea's chest. She adjusted Chloe's backpack, now 3 years old, as the girl played with her teddy bear on the apartment floor. The Tech Trend job brought fragile stability. Andrea coordinated content for Moms Connected, a project growing to connect single moms to daycares, free courses, and mental health support. Her marketing skills, long dormant, were blooming again, and she felt a quiet pride seeing her ideas take shape. But Mrs. Diane's shadow loomed larger. The previous week, Andrea got a call from a lawyer, Mr. Paul, saying Mrs. Diane had filed for custody of Chloe. The petition claimed Andrea's single-parent home was inadequate. The damp apartment worsened Chloe's respiratory issues, her finances were shaky, and Chloe's fevers were framed as medical neglect. Andrea read the papers with trembling hands, the ground collapsing beneath her. How could Mrs. Diane question her devotion? Every sleepless night, every timely dose of medicine, every sacrifice to keep Chloe fed and happy, reduced to nothing by cold words on paper. Andrea arranged to meet Thomas at Tech Trend's office, needing to confide in someone who wouldn't judge. The glass-walled building in the Loop, with its constant air conditioning, felt worlds away from hers. Thomas met her in his office, a spacious room overlooking Michigan Avenue's bustle. "Andrea, what's wrong? You look shaken," he said, offering a chair and water. She took a deep breath, explaining Mrs. Diane's custody filing. "She's using a rainy day and a fever to call me an unfit mother. How do I fight this, Thomas? I can't afford a fancy lawyer, and if I lose Chloe—" Her voice broke and she looked away, ashamed of her tears. Thomas listened silently, his face serious but free of the pity Andrea dreaded. "You won't lose Chloe. I know a great lawyer, Mr. Paul, who specializes in family law and has handled cases like this. I'll connect you, and don't worry about costs. Tech Trend has a legal assistance fund." Andrea opened her mouth to protest, but Thomas raised a hand, kind but firm. "It's not charity, Andrea, it's support. You're part of the team, and we take care of our own." Reluctantly, she agreed, her pride softening under necessity. She met Mr. Paul, a middle-aged man with wire-rimmed glasses and a direct manner. He reviewed the case, noting Mrs. Diane's strong points, her house, financial stability, relation to Chloe, but said Andrea's bond with her daughter and recent career progress could tip the scales. "We need to show you're a present mother and your situation's improving. The judge will want hard evidence," he said. Andrea spent the week gathering proof, tech trend pay stubs, rent receipts, medical reports showing Chloe's care. Meanwhile, Moms Connected progressed. Andrea led meetings with coders and social workers, suggesting features like an anonymous chat for mums to share experiences. During one meeting, Thomas praised her publicly. "Your ideas give this project heart, Andrea. It'll help thousands of women." The compliment made her blush but sparked a confidence she hadn't felt in years. Mrs. Diane's pressure didn't ease. At the daycare, while picking up Chloe, she appeared sharply dressed with her usual superiority. "You've seen the papers, I assume," Mrs. Diane said bluntly. "I don't want to hurt you, Andrea, but Chloe deserves better. My house has a yard, a good school nearby. What can you offer besides a moldy room?" Andrea held her anger, replying firmly, "I offer love, Diane, and I'm building something better for us." Mrs. Diane gave a dry laugh. "Love doesn't pay doctors, Andrea." The exchange ended as Chloe ran to her mother, oblivious to the tension. That night, Andrea took Chloe to Pilson's community park, a rare moment of lightness. As Chloe played on the slide, Thomas called. "How you holding up?" he asked, concern in his voice. She hesitated but shared the confrontation with Mrs. Diane. "Sometimes I wonder if she's right. Maybe Chloe would be better off with her," she admitted, voice breaking. Thomas paused before replying, "Andrea, you're the best you'll thing Chloe has. It's not about money or a big house. It's what you do for her every day, don't doubt that." His words, simple but steady, reignited something in her. At the preliminary hearing, Andrea arrived at the courthouse, heart racing, with Chloe in her arms, dressed in a clean but worn outfit. Mr. Paul presented their case, Andrea's unwavering love, her tech trend job, medical reports proving Chloe's care. Surprisingly, Thomas appeared as a witness, called by Mr. Paul. He spoke confidently, detailing Andrea's work ethic and dedication as a mother, even in hardship. "I met Andrea and Chloe in a tough moment, and I've seen how she puts her daughter first. She's rebuilding their life, and Tech Trend believes in her," he said, looking at Andrea, who felt a warmth in her chest. Mrs. Diane's lawyer painted a grim picture: the unhealthy apartment, Chloe's health issues, Andrea's limited means. The judge listened carefully, postponing the decision but ordering Andrea to find better housing within 60 days. Outside, Andrea hugged Chloe, relief mixed with fear. Thomas approached, hesitant. "You were amazing in there," she said, voice shaky. He smiled, his eyes holding something deeper. "Andrea, can I say something? Not as your boss, but as someone who cares." She nodded, confused. "Seeing you and Chloe, I feel something I haven't in a long time. I don't want to scare you, but I'm starting to care a lot about you both." Andrea was speechless, her heart racing. Mike's betrayal still haunted her, making trust hard. "Thomas, I'm not sure I'm ready. After everything." He raised his hands, respectful. "No pressure, just wanted you to know." That night, as Chloe slept, Andrea looked at Thomas's card on the table. For the first time, she wondered if there might be room in her life for more than survival. Outside, the sky was clear, a single star shining like a quiet promise of a different future. Morning sunlight slipped through the blinds of Andrea's new apartment in the Belmont Kragen neighborhood, a modest but airy space. The clean ceramic floors and mold-free walls felt like a fresh start. Andrea unpacked boxes while Chloe, now 3.5, played with stacking blocks in the living room, humming a tune from daycare. The rent was higher than Pilson's, but Tech Trend's health plan, added after Andrea's promotion to Moms Connected coordinator, made it feasible. The judge's 60-day housing mandate was met with Thomas's help. He'd connected her with a friend who offered an affordable lease. Andrea felt deep gratitude but also inner conflict. Each of Thomas's gestures, the ride in the rain, the job, the health plan, built a bridge between them, yet Mike's betrayal made her wary. She knew Thomas wasn't Mike, but trust felt like a leap she wasn't ready for. While making coffee, Andrea got a call from Ms. Linda at the daycare. "Andrea, Chloe's fine, but we need to discuss next semester's enrollment. The fee's gone up, and we need payment confirmation." Andrea sighed, promising to settle it by week's end, though every extra expense was a juggling act. At work, Moms Connected was gaining traction. The app, in its testing phase, linked hundreds of Chicago moms to free clinics and job training. Andrea ensured every feature was user-friendly. During a virtual meeting, she pitched a mentorship module for experienced moms to guide younger ones. "It could build emotional support, something you miss when you're alone," she said, her voice firm with conviction. Thomas on the call nodded with a proud smile. "Excellent, Andrea. Let's add it to the next update." After he messaged her privately, "You're changing lives with this project, congrats." The message stirred memories of his courtroom admission, which she hadn't addressed, torn between opening up and fearing hurt. That night, Miss Betty had a family emergency, leaving Andrea without childcare for an in-person tech trend meeting. With no choice, she called Thomas. "Sorry, but I can't leave Chloe tonight. Can I join by video?" Thomas replied calmly, "Bring her. The office is quiet at night, and I'll set up a spot for her." Andrea hesitated but agreed. At the office, Chloe was awestruck. "Mommy, it's a glass castle," she exclaimed, eyeing the transparent walls. Thomas greeted them, showing them to his office, where he'd set up cushions and toys he'd bought. "Hope this works for the little one," he said, pointing to the corner. Chloe ran to the cushions, grabbing a coloring book. "Uncle Thomas, do you live here?" she asked. He laughed. "Just work here, but it's more fun with you around." During the meeting, as Andrea discussed timelines, Chloe drew, occasionally showing Thomas her sketches, which he praised warmly. After, with Chloe asleep in the corner, Andrea and Thomas talked in the quiet office. "You're great with her," Andrea said, nodding at her daughter. "How do you know how to handle kids so well?" Thomas paused, a shadow crossing his face. "I almost became a dad years ago. My fiancée was pregnant, but we lost the baby, and then she moved on. I didn't." Andrea went quiet, touched. "I'm so sorry, Thomas. I had no idea." He shrugged, forcing a smile. "It's life, but being around Chloe reminds me what it's like to want to be better." His words hung in the air and Andrea's heart raced. "Thomas, what you said in court, I think about it, but I'm scared. Mike broke me in a way that still hurts." Thomas met her eyes, his sincerity disarming. "I get it. I won't push you. Just know I'm here, whatever you need." Before she could reply, Chloe woke, calling for her. "Mommy, I want to go home," she mumbled. Thomas helped carry their things to the car, and on the way, Chloe insisted he read a story. He picked one about a bird learning to fly, narrating with a warmth that made her giggle. At the apartment, Andrea put Chloe to bed, and on impulse, hugged Thomas at the door. "Thanks for today, and for not giving up on us," she said, voice thick. He nodded, their shared glance a silent vow. Over the next days, their dynamic shifted. Thomas brought small gestures, a candy bar for Chloe, coffee for Andrea, but gave her space. At work, Mums Connected shone at a social innovation event, where Andrea presented to NGOs and investors. Her speech about supporting single mums moved the crowd, and Thomas, in the front row, clapped proudly. After, he invited her for coffee. "You were phenomenal. This project's more than an app, Andrea. It's real change." She smiled, feeling seen in a way she hadn't since before Mike. "You gave me the chance to do this, Thomas. I can't thank you enough." He shook his head. "You did this yourself. I just opened the door." They talked personally. Thomas about his childhood in Wicker Park, raised by a single mum who worked as a seamstress. Andrea about her dreams of traveling as a marketer, shelved by motherhood. As they parted, Thomas touched her hand briefly, a gesture heavy with meaning. That night, Andrea looked at Chloe's drawing. Her, Andrea, and a tall man, clearly Thomas, under a rainbow. For the first time, she considered letting someone new into her life. Mrs. Diane kept pushing, though. During a visit, she brought new clothes for Chloe, but didn't miss a chance to criticize. "You think this new place fixes everything? Chloe needs stability, Andrea. Think of her, not your pride." Andrea stayed calm. "I am thinking of her, Diane. I'll prove it." After Mrs. Diane left, Andrea called Mr. Paul to confirm their strategy for the next hearing. She also texted Thomas, "Want to talk about us, when you're free." His reply was instant. "Anytime you want." For the first time in ages, Andrea fell asleep smiling, sensing the future might be brighter than she dared hope. 4 years had passed since that rainy night in Pilsen, when Andrea, soaked and desperate, held Chloe, unsure if a better tomorrow existed. now under Washington, D.C., is clear blue sky, where the horizon stretched endlessly. Andrea adjusted a microphone on an outdoor stage before a crowd of families, officials, and reporters. The event launched the Moms Connected Center, expanding the app into a national network offering daycares, job training, and counseling for single moms. At 38, Andrea was no longer the broken woman of before. In a simple navy blazer, her smile carried the confidence of someone who'd turned pain into purpose. Beside her, Chloe, now 7, held her hand, eyes sparkling with pride. "Mommy, there's so many people," she whispered, pointing at the crowd. Andrea laughed, ruffling her daughter's curly hair. "Yes, sweetie, it's because of you we're here." The Moms Connected project, funded by NGOs, businesses, and federal grants, was a milestone. But for Andrea, the real victory was Chloe's health, no more respiratory crises, and a home filled with love. Thomas, now her husband, sat in the front row holding their 5-year-old adopted son, Peter. His smile, the same gentle one from that rainy night, now held the depth of their shared life. The path hadn't been easy. 4 years ago, at the final hearing, Andrea won full custody of Chloe. The judge, impressed by her tech trend job, the Belmont Cragen apartment, and Chloe's medical progress, ruled in her favor. Mrs. Diane, initially defiant, softened over time. Seeing Chloe happy and healthy, she visited with fewer jabs, bringing homemade pies and even apologizing in her way for doubting Andrea. "You're a good mom, Andrea. Always were," she'd said one afternoon, eyes misty. Andrea forgave her, understanding Mrs. Diane's fear came from love for Chloe, however poorly expressed. On stage, Andrea's speech was steady but emotional. "When I became a single mom, I thought my world was over. I lost my marriage, my career, my confidence. But I learned that even in the rain, someone's always ready to offer an umbrella. This center is for every mum who, like me, needed help to rewrite their story." The crowd cheered, and Andrea glanced at Thomas, who lifted Peter, now giggling, in support. After, kids from project-supported daycares performed, and Chloe joined her school group, singing a song about hope that brought quiet tears to Andrea's eyes. Backstage, Thomas found her, handing Peter to Chloe to play. "You were incredible, as always," he said, pulling her into a hug. "We did this together," Andrea replied, kissing him softly. Their life had transformed since Chicago. 2 years earlier, they'd married in a small Pilsen Park ceremony, with Chloe tossing flower petals. Thomas then got an offer to lead sustainable tech projects in D.C. Andrea, now the executive director of Moms Connected, joined him, enrolling Chloe in a new school where she thrived, dreaming of becoming an astronaut. Adopting Peter, an orphaned boy from a project-supported shelter, completed their family. Peter's shy but curious mommy for Andrea melted her heart daily. That evening, after the event, they returned to their suburban D.C. home, a single-story house with a backyard where Chloe and Peter loved to play. On the porch, watching the sunset, Andrea held Thomas's hand. "Ever think about how far we've come?" she asked. "That rainy day. I never imagined this." Thomas squeezed her hand. "I knew you were special the moment I saw you shielding Chloe. I just didn't know I'd be lucky enough to be part of your life." Andrea laughed, eyes tearing. "You gave me more than an umbrella, Thomas. You gave me hope." He pulled her close, their silence filled by Chloe and Peter's laughter. A light rain began, soft and refreshing, unlike Chicago's storms. Chloe ran up, tugging Peter. "Look, Mommy, a rainbow!" she shouted, pointing at the colorful arc in the sky. Andrea and Thomas stood, hugging the kids. "It's beautiful, sweetie," Andrea said, voice thick. The rainbow felt like a perfect symbol. After rain, light always followed. Later, as Andrea tucked Chloe and Peter in, reading a story about a bird finding its nest after a storm, Chloe mumbled sleepily, "Mommy, our nest is the best, right?" Andrea kissed her forehead. "The best in the world, sweetie." Back in the living room, she found Thomas looking at their wedding photo, Chloe scattering petals. "Sometimes this feels like a dream," he said. Andrea sat beside him, head on his shoulder. "If it is, let's never wake up." As the rain stopped and stars appeared, Andrea felt a peace she'd never thought possible. Her journey, marked by betrayal, despair, and struggle, had led to love, purpose, and family. The Moms Connected Center was more than a project. It was proof that with support, any woman could rewrite her story. Here, with Thomas, Chloe, and Peter, Andrea knew she'd found her true home. Dear friends, if you enjoyed this heartfelt story, how about subscribing to the channel and giving it a thumbs up? Thanks, and see you next time.